What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and I am back. Again, I have taken so many hiatuses over the course of this channel, and this last one, as many of you know, was because of a lot of reasons. One, I moved, and also I was hard at work on writing and directing my upcoming film, The Coldest Serving, which, by the way, if you would like to see more about that, go ahead and subscribe to the Headspace Productions YouTube channel. That is the official YouTube channel for my independent production company, Headspace Productions. There's a ton of great content over there, behind the scenes interviews, as well as trailers and things like that. But now I have found myself in a place where I am able to balance work, life, my artistic endeavors, as well as my YouTube career. So I do hope that I will now be able to start consistently putting out content like I used to. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Today I am going to be reviewing the new film, The Long Walk, written by J.T. Molnar, based on the novel by Stephen King. It was also directed by Francis Lawrence, who directed every single Hunger Games film except for the first one, as well as I Am Legend and Constantine and a bunch of other surprisingly good movies. I honestly think he was a very good choice for this film, as we're going to talk about. The film stars David Johnson, Cooper Hoffman, and Mark Hamill, and the plot is as follows. In a 70s set dystopian version of war-torn America, 50 young men compete in a competition known as the Long Walk, in which they all must maintain a walking speed of no less than 3 miles an hour for an indefinite amount of time, and the winner is promised a life-changing cash prize. The consequences of failing to maintain this speed, though? A bullet to the head. The Long Walk can only end when there is one person left. 50 boys go in, only one comes out. Who will it be? So I didn't have any particularly unique expectations going into this film, as I had never read the original novel by Stephen King, which apparently was one of the first stories he ever wrote. It wasn't one of the first he ever published, but it was one of the first he ever wrote. I think he started writing it in like the mid-60s, and then it wasn't officially published until the late 70s under his pseudonym. In full transparency here, I don't think I've ever read through an entire Stephen King book back to front, though I am a casual fan of many of the film adaptations of his work, so this movie did have that going for me going into it. I also never sat through one of the trailers for this film back to front, and I only really knew the basic premise of this film, so I kind of went into this movie knowing jack shit about it, except the basic, very, very basic premise. That being said, prior to this film, I was already a very big fan of David Johnson due to his breakout role in last year's Alien Romulus, which is one of my favorite films in the Alien franchise. For me, it goes Alien, Aliens, Alien Romulus. Like, it is in my top 3. I truly love that film, and David Johnson, in my opinion, was one of, if not the best part of that film. And finally, prior to going into this film, I had already heard a lot of praise for it from many critics that I trust. So I went in expecting a good film, but I didn't have any sky-high expectations, and I certainly didn't have any expectations down here. I was just kind of going in, hoping it was going to be really good because I was hearing it was really good. Before we get into the review, I have decided to add in a new section of my reviews that I feel is deeply necessary, especially in today's market of film criticism, and that is letting you guys know what my biases are in regards to this film before I actually start giving my opinion on it. Firstly, I have always had a soft spot for dystopian stories, thrillers, and incredibly dark dramas. So that's another thing that this movie had going for it for me as a viewer. I love films like that, and a film being set in dystopia, it instantly gets some points for me. I'm instantly going to enjoy it just a tad bit more than I would if it wasn't set there. Same with movies that are thrillers, or as I said, incredibly dark dramas. And my second bias going into this is that I am a massive fan of Francis Lawrence as a director. He made the best Hunger Games film, Catching Fire, obviously. I don't even think that's up for debate, but also all of his other Hunger Games movies I find to be incredibly enjoyable and very well directed. And I Am Legend is one of my favorite zombie movies, even though I know they're not technically zombies. We're not going to go down that road, but like, it's a zombie movie, come on. And it is one of my favorites. I think that film is beautiful all the way up until the end. So now that I've gotten my biases out of the way, let's actually review the movie. And typically the way I structure my reviews is I get my negatives out of the way first, and then I end the video with my positives, because I always prefer to end on a positive note when it comes to film and filmmaking. However, special case with this movie, I sat and thought very, very hard as to what my criticisms of this movie are, if I have any negatives with it, and some of y'all might call bullshit on this, but I am being totally truthful. I couldn't think of a single thing in this movie that I didn't like. So, let's get into my positives. The first thing I want to talk about here is the pacing. You see, this is a film that is at risk of being incredibly repetitive and as a result very boring, but it never is. This film maintains throughout the entirety of its runtime a consistent sense of tension, drama, and unpredictability. The film is already only an hour and 48 minutes long, and it felt like an hour long. Genuinely, 48 minutes of that runtime just were lost on me just because of how well paced this film was. There was always something interesting happening, whether it be with the characters or the overall story or the physical progression of this journey that this ensemble is on. And something that has a lot to do with that is the script for this movie being airtight, managing to flesh out each lead character naturally and authentically through conversation without it ever feeling exposition heavy, which I really appreciate, because a lot of this dialogue is giving us exposition, but it's so well written that it doesn't even clock to you that that's what it's doing. Honestly, the dialogue throughout the entire movie is very well written and realistic, especially given the circumstances and the sort of heightened physical nature of this film. I cared so deeply for each and every lead character in this film, which made certain events later in the film that much more impactful. Also, I cannot praise the tension in this film enough. This is another reason why this script is so smart and why the tension works so well, because it is constantly throwing obstacle after obstacle at this group of boys, obstacles that you maybe wouldn't even think about on a surface level when you hear the premise of the film, but this script takes advantage of all of them, and that really helps maintain a consistent sense of suspense. Whether that be the group suddenly having to traverse an incline in the road without falling below the required 3-mile-an-hour speed, someone's shoes getting damaged, someone needing to use the bathroom, or even a fight breaking out between two characters. I mean, this film really explores its concept to its full and highest potential by throwing every possible obstacle that could possibly happen in this situation aside from the obvious. I also loved the way this film looked. The cinematography is truly masterful, and not in the way you would typically expect. It's not doing anything particularly revolutionary or unique or new, but what it does very well is capture the atmosphere and the tone and the grueling, cruel nature of the world that this film sets up. And on that point, something I want to point out is that since the characters in this film are always moving, the camera, therefore, is always moving. It is always in motion, which really adds to the breakneck pace of this film, because it feels like you as an audience member never have a moment to sit still and breathe and rest, because you are constantly moving with these boys, and honestly, that just helps ground us as the audience in this world with them. Even the color grading on the fucking sky somehow makes something that is typically so beautiful feel incredibly oppressive and foreboding. Also, all of the performances in this film are just fucking incredible. There is not a single weak link among them, and my personal picks for the standout performances in this movie are Cooper Hoffman, David Johnson, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced this guy's name, Tut Nyeot. These are truly powerhouse, Oscar-worthy performances. They all just bring such a rich energy and life to all of their roles that makes them not even feel like characters. It gets to a point where they genuinely just feel like real people, and you're a fly on the wall observing them in this incredibly tense and honestly devastating situation. Their performances truly transcend the medium of film, and honestly, this might secure David Johnson a nomination. But honestly, even if it doesn't, because I know that this film isn't doing as well as me and some other people would have hoped it would, this definitely still cements David Johnson as one of, if not the best rising star of our current generation. I cannot wait to see more from him. He is truly electric in this film. Now, be warned, this film is brutal. This film does not censor itself, and it certainly does not shy away from the cruel and unforgiving world of this totalitarian-run United States. Because these boys are under constant surveillance from the military, who are always driving either behind them or in front of them as they walk. And because of that, the threat of the bullet is always present, and that just further added to the tension throughout the film. And I would be lying if I said that this film being released in 2025 didn't make some scenes in this movie a bit more impactful. The first death, in particular, was incredibly shocking, not just in its nature, but also in its violence. And through that, the film establishes pretty early on the type of journey that it's going to be taking you on, and it never lets up. And another thing I love is that the violence in this film is never glorified or Hollywoodized or made to look cool or made to be enjoyed. It is, rather, made to be felt, and you do feel it. There's a line in the film where a few of the other boys have already been killed, where Pete, David Johnson's character, says something along the lines of, "I keep hoping that that part of this gets easier, but it never does." And that is honestly kind of a meta moment, because that's what I was feeling as an audience member too. You know, in the back of my mind, I was like, you know, like after a certain number of them get killed, I will have seen it happen enough and I'll get desensitized to it and it will no longer be hard to process or watch or deal with. Boy, was I fucking wrong. It never gets easier. If anything, it just gets harder and harder to watch as the film goes along. And this is elevated by the fact that you know in the back of your mind, every time someone gets killed, we're just getting closer and closer and closer to the inevitable realization, or reminder, rather, that the rules state there can only be one survivor. So every time someone is killed, it's like, yay, the chances of these characters that I really love winning are getting higher. And then you're like, oh wait, but only one of them can win. That sucks. And that, right there, that consistent sense of dread only adds to the film's tension and also makes the ending of the film that much more impactful. Which, by the way, I am aware that the ending of the film is quite different from the ending of the book, so I looked up the ending of the book after the film was over and compared the two. And here's where I stand on this. While I love the total bleakness and sort of nihilism of the book's ending, I actually do agree with the change that the filmmakers decided to put into the film. I'm not saying the ending of the film is better, but I would say it's equally as effective in a different way. And unfortunately, I can't really talk about this point too much without getting into spoilers, so all I will say is, I think it was a smart change given the political and social environment of the 2025 world that this film adaptation is being released in. Stephen King said something similar about it recently, and that's kind of where I stand on it. That being said, this film is absolutely, without a doubt, one of the most depressing movies I have ever seen in my life. I was a puddle of tears on multiple occasions and definitely by the end. However, oddly enough, another addition to this film that I really loved and also was completely unexpected was the fact that the ending left me with this strange sort of twisted sense of hope that, like I said, I really didn't expect, but in my opinion, it's a very welcome addition to the film. It sort of lights a fire in you. It ignites this part of you that wants to stand up and fight back against the oppressors in our society, and I thought the way that it depicted all of that was equally as devastating as it was inspiring. Guys, in conclusion, The Long Walk is a grueling, thrilling, devastating, yet deeply endearing and inspiring film that offers stellar performances across the board, timely messages, and some of the most emotionally impactful sequences and scenes that you'll see on the big screen this year. I adore this film, and I cannot wait to watch it again. Guys, thank you so much, as always, for watching. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you for being so patient with me. Just so much has been happening in my life over this past year in particular, and especially over these past few months, but things are going good now, and I think I am going to be able to make consistent YouTube content again. A little bit more on that movie I directed. I wrote and directed a film called The Coldest Serving, and I'm very, very happy to announce here, I've already announced it like everywhere else, but I'm very happy to announce here on this channel that my film, The Coldest Serving, is going to be shown in a theater on October 4th. Now, I don't know if that's before or after I have uploaded this video, because at the time of filming this, I don't know when this is going to be put out, but yes, my film is going to be shown in a theater full of people, and that is just unreal. So if you are in the area, the film is going to be shown at the Mary C. O'Keefe Cultural Arts Center here in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Tickets are $10.50 for general admission and $8.50 for first responders and military. So if you are in the area, please come out and support this film. It is indie in every sense of the word. We had a budget of barely $500, and everyone who worked on it poured their blood, sweat, and tears into it. So again, if you find yourself down here around that time, come out and support it. That would mean everything to me. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Look forward to more videos coming soon, and as always, keep writing, keep shooting, and keep editing.